Hello, hello. This is Mallory Wilkerson, your children and young adult librarian. Today we are going to be reading The Adventures of Captain Underpants, an epic novel by Dav Pilkey, okay? And we're going to be starting out with chapters 1 through 3. If you have read Captain Underpants before, give us a laughy face. If this is your first time reading it, give us the shock wow face, okay? And if you are enjoying it, just simply give us a like or a heart, okay? So we're going to get started. The Adventures of Captain Underpants. Tra-la-la! Chapter 1, George and Harold. Meet George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flap top, and Harold is the one on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. Flower shop. Pick your own roses. George and Harold were best friends. They had a lot in common. They lived right next door to each other, and they were both in the same 4th grade class at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School. George and Harold were usually responsible kids. Whenever anything bad happens, George and Harold were usually responsible. Flower shop. Pick our noses. But don't get the wrong idea about these two. George and Harold were actually very nice boys, no matter what anybody else thought. They were good, sweet, and lovable. Well, okay, maybe they weren't so sweet and lovable, but they were good nonetheless. It's just that George and Harold each had a silly streak a mile long. Usually that silly streak was hard to control. Sometimes it got them into trouble, and once it got them into big trouble. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 2, Treehouse Comics Incorporated. After a hard day of cracking jokes, pulling pranks, and causing mayhem at school, George and Harold liked to rush to the old treehouse in George's backyard. Inside the treehouse were 2 big, old, fluffy chairs, a table, a cupboard crammed with junk food, and a padlocked crate filled with pencils, pens, and stacks of paper. Now Harold loved to draw, and George loved to make up stories, and together the 2 boys spent hours and hours writing and drawing their very own comic books. Over the years, they had created hundreds of their own comics, starring dozens of their own superheroes. First, there was Dogman. Then came Timmy the Talking Toilet. And who could forget the amazing Cow Lady? But the all-time greatest superhero they ever made up had to be the amazing Captain Underpants. Hello. George came up with the idea. Most superheroes look like they're flying around in their underwear, he said. Well, this guy actually is flying around in his underwear. The 2 boys laughed and laughed. Yeah, said Harold, he could fight with wedgie power. George and Harold spent the entire afternoons writing and drawing the comic adventures of Captain Underpants. He was their coolest superhero ever. Luckily for the boys, the secretary at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School was much too busy to keep an eye on the copy machine. So whenever they got a chance, Harold and George would sneak into the office and run off several hundred copies of their latest Captain Underpants adventures. After school, they sold their homemade comics on the playground for 50 cents each. Chapter 3, The Adventures of Captain Underpants, written by George Beard and cartoons by Harold Hutchins. The Really Cool Adventures of Captain Underpants, written by George Beard, drawed by Harold Hutchins. It was a time of darkness and despair for the planet Earth. Bad guys had taken over the streets, and all of the superheroes in the world were too old to fight evil. Hey! Ha ha! Then along came a new improved extra strength superhero. Tra-la-la! Look up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's an egg salad sandwich! No way! I'm Captain Underpants! Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding waistband, more powerful than boxer shorts, and able to leap tall buildings without getting wedgy. Tra-la-la! Night and day, Captain Underpants watched over the city, fighting for truth, justice, and all that is pre-shrunk and cottony. Meanwhile, at nearby elementary school, turn the page. It was Stinky Taco Surprise Day in the cafeteria. Yuck! Everybody hated it so much, they all threw it away. Trash! Soon the cafeteria food came to life. I am the inedible hunk. The monster ran around the school, eating everything in sight. Munch! Help! The inedible hunk just ate up 15 folding chairs at the gym teacher. Oh no, not folding chairs. This looks like a job for tra-la-la, Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants shot lots of underwear at the monster, but it didn't do any good. Zip! Munch, munch! So Captain Underpants took off running and the inedible hunk chased him. Grr! Help! And chased him and chased him. And finally the inedible hunk got too tired and thirsty to chase Captain Underpants. How about a nice drink of water? So the monster took a long drink from the shiny white bowl. Gulp, gulp, when suddenly, flush! Hooray for Captain Underpants! And so the inedible hunk got flushed away and was never heard from again. Tra-la-la, the end. Don't miss our next exciting adventure, Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets, coming soon to a playground near you. And next week we will be starting Chapter 4, Mean Old Mr. Crump. I hope that you have enjoyed this time with us reading Captain Underpants so far, and we'll see you next week.